Hi, folks. This is Harold Ree with the Paw Print Animal Rescue Podcast. We have started selling t-shirts on the website called TeePublic. If you want to find out more, you can find our store at thisispawprint.com/shop. Part of the proceeds from any t-shirt sales will go to animal rescue organizations, of course. Once again, thisispawprint.com/shop. Also, as you'll hear Nancy and I discuss, our Instagram page is blowing up, mainly because we have a wonderful new foster puppy named Rio. If you want to check out our Instagram page, go to instagram.com/thisispawprint. Thanks, and on to the show.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 151. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guest is author Laura Schenone.
We're pleased to have a special presentation of Laura Schenone, who gave a book reading and signing at Book Passage Bookstore in Corte Madera, California, about 30 minutes north of San Francisco. But before we get to Laura, I want to catch up with Nancy and a wonderful new friend that we've made in the past week and a half.
Rio is our latest foster puppy. He's about 2 months old. He's probably a cross between a border terrier and I'm guessing maybe a Brazilian terrier, which is not a well-known breed, but I Googled and there's they kind of look like a Jack Russell with a V marking on their forehead. He might be part Brazilian terrier.
And he's about the cutest dog we've met. He's been blowing up our Instagram page. I think the first photo I posted of him, I think it's getting close to 300 likes, which might be a record for any of the photos that we've posted.
Rio is a very well-behaved puppy. At 2 months, he already figured out how to use the doggy door. Lots of older dogs are become very hesitant to use the doggy door. They're a bit intimidated at first, but he just went right ahead and went in and out of it. He sleeps well. He does get up in the middle of the night. He's a pretty well-behaved puppy. As he stays with us longer, he is beginning to explore his puppy curiosities, but he seems to know his boundaries pretty well. We have 3 small dogs of our own, and he likes to chase after them, and they get annoyed. But Rio, he stops before it gets too far. If you see a picture of Rio, he looks a lot bigger than he actually is. Everybody, including myself, is surprised when they meet him after seeing his picture. He just, for some reason, looks like a much larger breed dog in the photos.
But his paws are pretty tiny, which maybe points to the fact that he won't be that big of a dog. So as you said, right, under 20 pounds, probably full grown. Okay. Quick commercial on fostering. So really this is not, Rio is not going to be our dog. We're fostering him until he gets adopted into a permanent family, a forever family. So for any of you out there looking to adopt a rescue, one potential path that we might suggest would be fostering. Fostering is a great way to, one, help out your local shelter or your local rescue organization. What you're doing is that you are homing a dog, at least temporarily, with you until they find that permanent home. And you're making room at the local shelter or local rescue organization to take in additional animals. Any other advantages to fostering that you want to talk about?
So when puppies come into the shelters, it becomes a high priority to get them out as quickly as possible because young dogs, puppies, are the most susceptible population to the shelter environment. The shelter is stressful for any dog, adult dogs, but especially for puppies. They get exposed to a lot of germs, disease, and stress. So shelters like to get the puppies out right away. So by fostering, you'll be able to help out the shelters by relieving them of the responsibilities of having to take care of a puppy. In fact, hypothetically, if an unweaned puppy comes into the shelter and there's nobody who can take the puppy, then they can be potentially euthanized because the shelter is just, they don't have the staffing to look after a young puppy, which requires 24-hour care pretty much. We encourage you all to foster.
You don't have to just foster puppies. You can also foster kittens. You can also foster adult dogs or cats. If you may have been listening to any previous episodes, we got into contact with Palomacy, which of all things is a pigeon and dove rescue organization. So if you're into birds, you can foster anything from a pigeon, a dove, a parrot, all different kinds of animals. And so fostering is a great way to keep your schedule a little bit more flexible, because if you have, of course, your own adopted animal, it's tougher to take vacations and trips out of town without having to arrange for babysitting or homesitting or boarding. With fostering, you have at least a little bit more flexibility that you'll kind of know within some degree of certainty how quickly your animal might get adopted. And that, of course, can leave you a little bit more free time, let's say during the summer or during the holiday season. If you ever want to learn more about fostering, I would say most shelters and rescue organizations do offer fostering opportunities. All you have to do is just call them up, contact them, and learn when their next meeting is for volunteering or fostering. Now back to Laura Shannon. She is a repeat guest from previous episodes. Her book, The Dogs of Avalon, was released earlier this year. An amazing book, probably one of my top 3 books for the year when it comes to animal rescue, because it touches upon such an interesting topic, which is greyhounds in Ireland, with plenty of connections to other places, including the United States. If you've listened to our previous episodes with Laura, you'll want to listen to this one because it's not just a reading and it's not a repeat of our previous interview with her, but really a presentation about her journey, not only with greyhounds, but with animal rescue and animal rights. If you want to learn more about Laura Schenone and the Dogs of Avalon, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/151.
So welcome to Book Passage. My name is Cheryl Bronstein, and I'll be your event host this afternoon, or morning still. By attending this event, you're supporting Book Passage and independent bookstores. Book Passage has, we recently opened our 3rd location, just off Bridgeway in Sausalito. And if you have not had a chance to visit that store, please come by. We have plenty of free parking right outside. Book Passage has been a Bay Area institution for over 40 years.
Woo-hoo.
And we look forward to serving you for another 40 years.
Yes.
Recently here at Book Passage, we were fortunate to have a Harvard visionary professor author on this stage. One of the audience questions was, what do you think the next big social justice issue will be? This man did not hesitate to answer. Animal rights. He went on to say that in 50 years, people will look back at the treatment of animals as cruel, barbaric, inhumane, and very similar to how we view slavery and torture. In that sense, Dogs of Avalon is ahead of its time. This wonderful book is a historical and contemporary journey through the history of greyhound racing and the troubling treatment they received when retired. Shoshone spent many years researching, traveling, and interviewing people in the industry and in Ireland, Europe, and the United States. She expands the topic beyond just greyhounds to include all animals in peril: circus tigers, wild monkeys, dolphins, and marine parks. At the center of the story is Marion Fitzgibbon, the head of the Irish Society of the Prevention of the Cruelty to Animals. In her quest, she faces an entrenched racing industry protected by money and power. Despite learning about widespread animal abuse, this book offers us hope as we are presented with everyday heroes who devote their lives to protect animals. According to one reviewer, this book will convince you that we become greater human beings when we show compassion to all Earth's creatures. An incredible journey chronicled with journalistic integrity that will resonate with anyone who has ever loved an animal. Laura Shannon is the author of the James Beard award-winning 1,000 Years Over a Hot Stove and The Lost Ravioli Recipes of Hoboken. She writes for Savor, New Jersey Monthly, and other magazines. She lives in New Jersey with her family and her dog, Lily. Let's please give a very warm welcome to our celebrated author this morning, Laura Shannon.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thanks for coming. It's great to be here in the Bay Area and this wonderful bookstore. Independent bookstores are so important to me, and this one is one of the greatest in the country. Cheryl, thank you for that. Thank you for the amazing introduction.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you. Okay. So first I want to say that I came from New Jersey. So if you hear me say the word dog, you'll recognize that. I want to thank Marion Fitzgibbon, which has brought these beautiful, some people just brought their Greyhounds, but there are 3 members of the Animal Assisted Therapy team from Marion Fitzgibbon. This organization does great work if you don't know about them, and many things, humane education, advocacy, in addition to this program, which brings dogs to all kinds of care facilities, to schools, and really connects animals with people in a very, very positive way. So right now I'm going to tell you about the Dogs of Avalon, what it's about, how I came to write it. I'm going to show you some pictures, and then we'll take some questions. First and foremost, this is a book about power and oppression and the fight for justice. It's about a motley band of women who fight back against cruelty and try to make a difference. It's about the human-animal bond and the people who are born with a very special calling, that they feel that they must, absolutely must help animals. And this book is about greyhounds. And most of all, this book is about the real-life hero named Marion Fitzgibbon, as Cheryl said. An Irish woman who's an ordinary housewife and in the middle of living her kind of normal life, suddenly has an experience that makes her drop everything and take up the cause of animals. She starts first right in her community with cats and dogs, mostly dogs, strays, and then she expands to a national stage and an international stage. And my book tells her story, and we watch her kind of out of control as she goes further and further, and we wonder how far she'll go, what that really looks like when someone is obsessed with a cause. I came to know this story because I adopted a dog from Ireland completely by accident. Now there's a crazy twist. About 10 years ago, Marion Fitzgibbon honored Marion Fitzgibbon as their humanitarian of the year. So how did it happen that a charity in Northern California came to honor a woman from Limerick? And the connection is really the same thing that drives so many things, the passion of one individual, and that is Emma Clifford, who's here, a woman from Ireland. We've never met till today, but we both have this special appreciation for Marion, and Emma has, with the help of the Marine Humane Society where she worked, brought recognition and help to not only Marine Humane, but also to Marion's Sanctuary, which is Limerick Animal Welfare now. So she and I are connected in some strange way. How many of you out there have ever adopted an animal? Okay. All right. How many of you consider yourselves natural-born animal lovers? Okay. So I'm in the minority. I'm here to tell you today that when I started this, I'm not a natural-born animal lover. No way. And when I began this, I was the kind of person, I get bored by long conversations about pets. I'd never given money to a single animal cause in my life. I preferred children's causes. I was a food writer, and animals to me were about meat and milk, and butter, and cheese. And though I respected people who took care of animals, I wish them well, but it just wasn't my thing. And actually, I'm kind of afraid of animals, and I still kind of am, because I'm afraid of the squirrels outside my window. I think they're going to get in my house and in my room at night. I'm nervous around animals. And I have some phobias about animals, actually. So I didn't have it. I did have my own 2 dogs growing up, and I love them. We had Doberman Pinschers, and my parents bred our dog Charade with another dog who lived in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was AKC kind of thing, and they brought her down, and I was about 12, and I thought it was so exciting and strange that they were taking our dog to have sex with another dog. And there were 13 puppies born in our basement, and it was a bright spot of my childhood. It was wonderful. But just because you love your own dogs doesn't mean you love other dogs or other animals, just the way that, unfortunately, just because we love our own children doesn't mean we love all children. So you get it. I wasn't one of these people. I came to this story because I have an oldest son who wanted, and in my view needed, a dog and deserved a dog. But I was a jerk and kept putting him off. Let me make sure. 2-sided pages, which is very good. Okay. I happened to make friends with a woman in my town named Elizabeth, and she was an Irish American who spent time in Ireland going back and forth once or twice a year. And every time she came back, she told me she brought greyhounds and lurchers. We don't know what lurchers are in this country too much, but they're basically a greyhound cross and a cast-off of the industry. And that no one there wanted them, and she said there were some women smuggling these dogs out of Ireland. She was bringing them back. Did I want one? And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Why would someone bring dogs from Ireland here? But it meant a lot to her, so I just kept my hands out. That's great. No, we're not ready. We're not interested. And every time she went, she kept sending me an email about the next dog she was bringing back from Ireland. And every time I just erased them and said, no, no, no. So I am going to read a little bit and tell you how that changed. Ultimately, I got a dog for one reason and one reason only. My older son needed one. I delayed, first with a tank of fish, then with a couple of gerbils, as silly parents often do. Sometime later, when the pressure was closing in, a big, thick dog encyclopedia found its way into our home. And I patronized my son, and I told him to study it and research it and find out about breeds, so that maybe at some point in the future, when we were seriously considering getting an animal, we could make a good selection. Whether it was the universal loneliness of childhood or his own particular version, I cannot say. But this quiet, dark-eyed boy of mine was the 7, 8, and 9-year-old who did not find much fun in playing sports and games. He loved books but despised school. All too often, he seemed to be standing at the gates of childhood, not going in. A sage person told my husband and me that childhood wasn't for everybody. Some kids just don't make good kids. It'll get better in time. And it did. Though, of course, back then we couldn't know. One thing that we knew for sure was that in the presence of animals, our son was happy and at ease. He seemed to know intuitively how to approach and speak to them, and whether a creature was stressed and needed space. He was one of those people who from the beginning of life have an eye toward the creatures of the world. He was the kid who could hold lizards and snakes without flinching, and he protested when other boys took frogs from the creek. He pitied my fear of small furry things, such as mice, which remind me of you know what, and I have terrible phobia of that. But one day, he came to me and he looked at me with his big black eyes and said, "I'm not going to look at this dog encyclopedia anymore. Don't lie to me. You're never going to get me a dog." So I was running out of time. Anyway, And then I saw my own selfishness finally. And then shortly after that, I got another one of those emails from my friend Elizabeth. So, and it jolted me as it would anyone. I'd never seen or considered anything like that. There we go. So, the email took the form of a diary. And it said, Lily, our beautiful Lily, how did she survive? And it describes the way she was found and came in. That's what mange looks like when a dog's abandoned and they get this terrible disease. And it documents, as you can see, as time passed. She was in a sanctuary somewhere in Ireland, obviously. And, we're very happy to report the news. Lily, she's making a remarkable recovery. What a surprise, how great she is. She's ready for her home. And then that line there, Lily is a real miracle dog. She holds no grudges, she's sweet, and she spreads love and happiness. And I thought, that's our dog. That's going to be our dog. And in case you don't know, really, that photo pretty much devastated me. So I thought, that's our dog. So Lily came to us, and Elizabeth brought her, and the book describes our family life with Lily. She's a lurcher. She's smaller than these greyhounds here, but has a very similar body, except for these slightly floppy ears that are a mystery. She's a mix. But she's very, very greyhound in that she's a ballet dancer, really, and an athlete, and reserved. Greyhounds are very kind of cat-like. And at first my sons were like, why doesn't she want to catch ball with us? She's not like, they wanted like a lab. And we said, this is Lily. And so we called her a dat, a cross between a dog and a cat. But when I took her out, there were these tennis courts behind our house, and when I took her out and set her free, then we saw her true nature, which is when you see a greyhound run, it's the most beautiful thing. It's poetry in motion. And as I wrote in the book, she's more air than earth, more bird than dog. So that's our Lily. And you can see things turned out pretty good. That's my youngest son, Simon. My oldest son's arm is in the picture. And there's the princess. So she really did transform. She's a great story. So, about 6 months after we had Lily, I get a call from Elizabeth again, and she says, Marion Fitzgibbon from Ireland is visiting her son, who happens to live in New Jersey, not far from you. She's the president of the ISPCA, and she was behind Lily's rescue. Would you like to meet her? And I said, sure, I'm curious, I'm a writer. And I had heard from Elizabeth that the story was that Lily had been left on the side of the road by Irish gypsies. And if you're a writer and you get a dog on the side of the road by Irish gypsies, you're going to follow the story. What is the story? So I went. I said, sure, I went. So this is back in about 2007. I must have expected some kind of folksy animal person, perhaps an eccentric grandmother, all warm and lovey-dovey. But instead, I was introduced to a tall woman of straight bearing and a manner that reminded me more of a diplomat than a cat lady. Marion was in her late 60s by then. She had short blonde hair and a pretty face covered in wrinkles. When she spoke about animals, she sounded like she was addressing the General Assembly of the UN, describing children caught in genocide. There was an implicit assumption that animals were important to the well-being of everyone. And she wasn't going to explain it if we didn't get it. So that day, let me show you Marion. That's a picture of Marion. So we sit down that day, and she starts to talk to me about her life. She'd spent decades by then rescuing animals, and she'd risen to the head of the ISPCA, and she told me that she'd rescued circus animals. This starts the book. It's a very dramatic rescue from some backyard tigers and a bear, and she got them placed in a sanctuary in LA. And This is Molly, the bear. Molly was also in this backyard menagerie. He was a well-meaning person, an animal lover who thought he could save these animals from the circus, and he got so in over his head. And the animals wound up being abused, neglected. So anyway, Molly got to go to a sanctuary in Canada with Marion's help called Bear With Us, where she lived a very long life. She died just last month, but she had 30 years, and she really had a good outcome considering where she'd come from. And then she told me that she had worked with travelers. Travelers are Irish gypsies. They're not Roma, but they are at the margins of society in Ireland. And she had done something very unusual, which is travelers have been traveling around Ireland for centuries, and they're very connected to their horses and dogs. And as society started settling and their lifestyle became erased away, many of them have come in off the road. There's still some that live in camps. And she told me that back in the 90s, she would go into camps to try to help the travelers with their animal care of their horses and dogs. It's extremely unusual for a settled person there's a lot of fear of travelers to go into their camps and do this. And she told me that she had actually taken their case to the High Court of Ireland and gotten them running water and toilets and helped their kids get in school. So I was really quite taken with her. She's spoken with greyhounds, and she told me that she spoke about greyhounds, and she told me that Ireland was the leading breeder and exporter of greyhounds of greyhounds in Europe, and that they were considered disposable. And she said to me just last month, a few months ago, there was a trench in England with 10,000 greyhound bodies that had been disposed of, and most of them had Irish ear tags on them. They get tattooed. And that she had been trying to stand up against the industry for many years. So I found this all just kind of crazy, that she saw this connection, not just animals, but with people at the margins. So, but I still didn't, I really thought she was kind of crazy. So I'm reading a little more. While we were talking, I thought to myself, what kind of person is this? What kind of person appoints herself to do this? And I asked her that much, and she said, I was born that way. I cannot walk past a herd animal. I'm physically not capable. She called it an affliction. You think that maybe with the next one you'll make a difference, and then the next 100, but of course you're only more and more. And then I asked the big question that we all have, many of us, probably not you, because you're all born animal people, but people like me. Why animals? Why not suffering children? Why not people in crisis? And that's when she said, oh, we help people too. We would never walk into a place and help an animal and pass a person by who needed help. We get to know their families. We go to the public housing projects. We fought to get the traveler kids in schools. And there was this one time I found a prostitute. When I was going out to pick up a dog, I got a call about a dog. You know, her house is like the animal welfare hotline. She gets calls. And I went out to go look for this dog, but instead I found this prostitute. She was in such terrible condition, and I just wanted to help her get a shower. So I picked her up and I put her in my car, and I took her to all these charities, tried to help her, and finally I couldn't get anyone to help her, but I gave her a meal. And, you know, I felt so bad that I couldn't get her help, but I tried. And I still didn't get it. She said, these things are a social service, but our focus is always on the animals. And then when she saw my face still looking at her, she said, every living creature has the right to live and die with dignity. And then she said it in a softer, almost reverent tone one more time. And I could tell that she'd long ago settled on this as her religious creed. It was a beautiful idea then and now, and I doubted such a thing could possibly work. And yet I wanted to believe it was true. Marion told me I'd be welcome to Ireland to see the sanctuary that she was trying to build before she died. And I told her maybe someday I would. So that's how I got onto this story. If you read my book, and I hope you will, I hope that you'll find it to be a page turner. I wrote it that way. I worked really hard to try to write it that way, where you watch this woman, just as I said earlier, just go deeper and deeper in, and what that really looks like to be caught up and trying to make a difference. And as her ambitions get bigger, she puts herself in danger. She goes on undercover missions. She gets beat up. She gets caught in gunfire. Because when you go to places where animals suffer, you're often going to places where humans are suffering as well. So that part, I hope, is kind of a page turner. And I hope that people who read it will be inspired. I just want to show you a little bit about greyhounds. So this is a Roman statue. Greyhounds come from a family that is the same as that Irish wolfhound back there, that enormous creature. They're sight hounds. Unlike dogs that hunt with their scent, they see and then they run for the prey. So in the Roman times, we find evidence of writers mentioning Celtic hounds, and the Celts were bringing them on their migrations westward. And they left them all along, but they really found their home in the British Isles and Ireland. In the Middle Ages, they were really for noblemen and aristocrats who use them for hunting, as you can see here. You get the idea. And after hunting, a new kind of sport was born called coursing. And that is where you would have one hare set loose and two dogs go after it. And you see whichever one gets it first or turns the hare first wins. It's basically, it's a blood-on-blood sport. It's still practiced today in Ireland. And it was practiced here in the United States, actually, by Irish and British immigrants who came here. There was a guy named Patrick Owen Smith, who was an engineer, and he happened to witness a coursing event not far from here, actually in California. And when he heard the rabbit squeal, he was so upset. He wanted to come up with a solution to this problem, and he invented the mechanical lure. And the very first greyhound race on a circular track happened in Emeryville, California, not far from here. But unfortunately, from there, the animals become a commodity. And all over the world, thousands have disappeared. So in the United States, there was a big movement in the 90s of it's very women-led, to start adopting out these dogs and to see them as pets, and instead of having them quietly disappear. So the United States and the UK were really fabulous at moving this forward. There's still too many dogs that are unaccounted for. But in Ireland, because it's such a rural country, because it's because of colonialism and many, many reasons, it hadn't happened. So Marion was really on her own trying to fight the Irish Racing Board, which gets huge money from government, huge. So as I said, the adoption movement was very much led by women. To be fair, I wanted to understand the other side. In rural communities, people see animals in a different way, based on the history of working with them and using them. So I hung out with some dog men, and I liked them. I liked a few of them, some of them I didn't. A couple of them I really liked. And what you see there is this idea of humans wanting this victory, to be the person who wins. And this is a family of who bred that dog, a 150-year-old family tradition of breeding greyhounds. And they treat their dogs very well. But they do say to me, well, there has to be some wastage. So it's a different attitude, and when you're dealing with culture, it really is the same thing we see very much now, the rural-urban divide. You really see it with animals. When I was writing this book, it took me way too long, and it was very hard. And I would look at that picture, and it would give me a lot of inspiration. This is an artist, a British photographer named Faye Godwin, and that's a lurcher named Rebecca. And I would look at that picture again and again. As a writer, I'd wonder, did she have that dog go back and forth until she got the shot? Did she just get it in spontaneity? How did she do that? But what she does in this picture is she makes animals seen, this animal seen, in a way that it snaps the sense out of you to just really take in what this animal is. So as Cheryl said, I don't think we really see animals. I didn't really see them. She made this scene, and I hoped that as a writer I could do the same and make the animal scene. The title of the book is inspired by a sanctuary in Ireland called Avalon. Marion helped start this sanctuary, but it's not her sanctuary. Marion is totally involved in trying to complete a sanctuary before she dies. She's gotten very, very far. And there's some literature back there from Limerick Animal Welfare next to the Marin Humane information. You can find out more. So where does that leave us? I told you a lot of stuff. I believe that we are at a crossroads in history. We are finding out from scientists more and more how intelligent animals are, how we didn't understand them before. And not that animals need to be intelligent for us to treat them well. There's a very big question in the animal rights world, which is, it's not whether or not they can think, it's whether or not they can suffer. But because we're humans and we value intelligence so much, it seems to be helping, but science is proving. You know about birds, right? Does everybody know how smart birds are? We have no idea. They are so smart. And of course, certain animals, like elephants, who can recognize themselves in a mirror. They do studies where the elephant looks in the mirror, and then they take the mirror away and they put a mark on the elephant's head, and then they put the mirror again and he goes like this. He knows it's him, and there are many animals that do that. So my feeling is that this is a crossroads, and we need to listen to the scientists who are really telling us things we didn't know. And we need to listen to people, I suppose like many of you here, who have this special understanding of animals and see things that the rest of us don't. And that is so important, and that's Marion, and there are her greyhounds. One of my final moments in the book, and this is a mystery. I'm not going to tell you how, but I do wind up in a jungle in Mexico looking at these spider monkeys, but I'm not going to tell you. So that is my story for today, and I'm very glad that I had a chance to share it with you. It really did take me a long time to write the book, so it's a joy to be able to come out and tell people about it.
Now we'll take questions.
How long did it take you to write the book?
I don't really want to tell you. Now, I have a joke with some writers. We say 6 years, but really it's 7, 8, or 9, or 10. I started this book, and I had some other things going on in my life, so it did take me. I first met Marion in 2007, and I didn't commit to writing the book until 2008, and I finished it at the end of 2016. But there were a lot of things going on. I was working. I had a day job. There were a lot of things going on. So, but it took a long time.
Has your experience meeting Marion turned you into an animal activist?
You are not the first person to ask me that. I think that do you think that this counts? Yeah?
Yes.
And I guess you answered the question. I feel that as I said to my friend Maria today when we were coming, you get a little nervous before you talk to people. I do. And then I just tell myself, it's not really about me. I'm speaking for the animals and all these people who told me their story to get it to a wider audience. I think that as a writer, and I did not set out to write, and if you read the book, you'll see that no one is really perfectly good in this book, including Marion and the dogman. No one's perfectly bad. I think as a writer, my job is to be the observer and tell the stories. So I feel like I was doing my job. But the answer is now I have given money to animal causes, and if someone asks me to do something, I will definitely consider it. So, yes.
Your son who wanted the dog, where is he at now with his involvement?
Yeah, he is a senior in college. Of course, he grew up and went away and is having his life. And then it became very clear that Lily was my dog. And she's always at my side. She's 12 now. She's in great condition, thank God. I can't bear the thought of losing her. And he's great. But he was the kind of kid, I have to say, he was not the kid who said, I want a dog, and then did nothing. And he took care of her. He always he advocated for her. And my other son also, having a dog in the family is just so good for children to develop empathy. It's not, of course, there are many ways to develop empathy, but it's one wonderful way. So he was fabulous. But he's living his life, which is great. That's what they're supposed to do.
We've also had other authors that have come here talking about how a dog has really saved their life, just from health-wise, giving them purpose to live and making them get outside and exercise. Have you come across that in your...
Well, those are all the dog books, and I didn't want to write that book because everyone wrote that book. I saved a dog and the dog saved me is a very common theme.
And I looked at Lily and I thought, did Lily save me? No, she didn't. But what all she gave to us is so much more than we ever gave her. And I did become a vegetarian as a result, and I'm a really bad vegan. I try to eat less. I can't say I'm a vegan, I can't, but I try. I really try to reduce my footprint and use of animals as much as I can, which is really what, the best that most of us can do. So did Lily save my son? That would have made a nice story, There was a time when he had, when my son was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and now we say that's not true, he didn't have it, and he denies it, so we don't use that. But at one point he said to me, "You're writing this book, you're not going to make me into your Temple Grandin, by the way." He was like, he saw right through that. So, and luckily the book took so long that I had a chance to actually have him read the parts about him and approve them, because he was an adult by the time I finished it. So, one positive factor.
Is that book also being translated in other languages? Or?
Could you call my publisher? Tell them they have not been able to do that yet. But as I said, if Helen Mirren decides to play Marion in the movie, then everyone will want to translate. It has not been. I would love that, and I would love it to be translated to German, because there's a.
Well, that's actually what my mom is very much into, like Animale, and that's how she knew about the Dogs of Avalon, and so. She would love that book as well. So
I have heard that from Germany and Italy. They take a lot of Greyhounds. It's interesting. So now, from Marion's work, one question that you didn't ask is, what's the situation today? After the economy crashed in Ireland, worse than so many places, as you may know, the whole racing business really contracted, and so many fewer dogs are bred, which is great. But unfortunately, the government is investing huge money to try to build it up again. However, there definitely are some movements forward now. Marion used to be the only one at first really shouting about Greyhounds, but now there are many organizations doing that, and even the racing board does help with a pathetically few placements of adoption, like a couple hundred a year, but they at least do something. And more trainers now come in and say, "Can you help me home my dog?" So it absolutely is moving in that direction. And back to Germany, there is Pro Animale, which is this German-run Greyhound sanctuary there that also has helped raise awareness.
My daughter will probably correct me. She's in the back. She's working on a project about breed discrimination. Is there breed discrimination against Greyhounds?
Completely in Ireland. That's why no one wants them. Just in Ireland. Well, there was here. Oh, absolutely. First of all, they don't really fit your idea. Many people thought they were not a family pet because they're so large. The males are large. The females aren't that large. And they were just really seen as a working dog. And they just kind of disappeared quietly, when they were done racing. So there was discrimination against them. But the more people, mostly women, who would be seen walking around with them at parks and on streets would help break that down. But it has not happened there. And it's really sad. I hope it will, but mostly those dogs are still being shipped out today to other countries, England, Britain, Italy, very much Italy. Marion sends to Pet Levrieri. She sends Grands there, and they love them over there. They just think they're the greatest things, so that's kind of beautiful. But it would be much better for Irish people to take their dogs into their homes. It's only a country of 4 million people, though, and that is what one of the trainers said. It's a small country, so how many people could even absorb them if they wanted to? Mm-hmm. It's tough.
I don't have a question, but would you mind if I told your audience the status of Greyhound racing here in this country right now?
Yes, I can also, but why don't you do it? What's your connection?
Well, I've been involved with Greyhound Rescue for 20 years. And met my first Greyhounds at Marin Humane, believe it or not, in 1989.
All the connections we have.
Yes, there's a story there, but I wanted people here to know that when we adopted our first Greyhound in 1997, 20 years ago, there were 48 tracks operating in the U.S. Now there are 18.
And there were 35,000 dogs bred a year at the peak.
Yeah.
So and almost all of them were put down.
Yeah. So we are hoping, in this country at least, that we will reach a tipping point where it just is no longer profitable for people to keep breeding these dogs. And the industry is dying out. And it is still biggest in Florida, where the Constitution says they must have dog racing. But there's now movement, in the legislature there to change the Constitution to make it finally not make it mandatory in the state.
Thank you.
Amazing that people are.
Thank you.
I couldn't say for sure what the numbers are. They've dropped.
How many dogs are bred?
Yeah.
When I was
Yeah.
finishing the book, I guess around 2006, maybe 2015, I saw 10,000 dogs bred a year.
Here.
Yeah.
And what's Ireland's number now?
They went from about 25,000 when I started with Marion, and then down to maybe 15,000, but they're rising again. The government just gave special breeding money last year to breed more. Yeah. But you know, there's a whole story there. It's all connected to many other larger things, in my view. Any other questions? Thank you again to the dogs that came.
Thank you.
They made my day. They're so great. Thank you for the people who brought them. Please, you know, if you want to adopt a dog, please consider talking to the Marin Humane Society and consider adopting a Greyhound.
We want to say thank you to Laura Shannon for giving her reading at Book Passage Bookstore in Corte Madero, California. We also want to thank Cheryl Bronstein of Book Passage for giving a wonderful introduction to Laura's talk, as well as Marin Humane for co-sponsoring Laura's event. If you want to learn more about Laura Shannon and the Dogs of Avalon, you can go to her website, laurashannon.com, or go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/151. You can find previous episodes of Paw Print on your favorite podcast app, including Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and now on Spotify, one of the world's largest and most popular music streaming apps. Look for Paw Print Animal Rescue and hit subscribe to get the latest episodes immediately. All the music you hear on Paw Print is composed, produced, and performed by the wonderful Luke Gartner Brereton. Find him at info.vanillagroovemedia.com. If you want to find me or Nancy or our foster puppy Rio on social media, find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Search for our handle, This is Paw Print, all one word. We just want to say thank you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. We've now been listened to in over 130 countries and territories, and we could not have done it without your support. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You get it?